Day 93. I'm reading If God is Love, page 162. Jesus was gentle because God is gentle. God knows our deepest pains, hidden fears, checkered pasts, and personal prejudices. God is not blacksmith hammering us into rigid conformity, but potter shaping us carefully into something beautiful and useful. God comes gently, seeking to be in relationship with us, but never violating in our integrity. God, the creator of the universe, also comes humbly. Jesus demonstrated this humility. One evening, before the evening meal, Jesus took a basin, took off his outer clothes, and wrapped a towel around his waist. Then he washed the feet of each his disciples. This was not simply a symbolic gesture. In his day, people wearing sandals and walking dusty roads could expect their host or their host's servant to wash their feet. Some scholars speculate the disciples took turns performing this chore. Whatever the case, on this night, the task fell to Jesus. When he had finished it, he said, "Do you know what I have done to you? You called me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, that you also should do as I have done to you." I wonder what the church would be like if we had committed ourselves to washing one another's feet every Sunday instead of taking communion. Jesus was humble, willing to take the servant's role. Imitating Jesus' gracious Christianity is more committed to relationship and reconciliation than position and power. My father tells the story of an especially acrimonious church meeting in which two men, both good men and respected leaders, found themselves passionately advocating opposing viewpoints. In the heat of the discussion, both men became ungracious towards one another. Matt, one of the men, suddenly rose and stormed out of the meeting. Everyone was shocked, since this kind of behavior was out of character. 15 minutes later, Matt returned with a basin of water in his hand, a towel over his shoulder, and tears in his eyes. He knelt before his opponent, removed his shoes and socks, and began to wash his feet. When he'd finished, he said, "Please forgive me. I've treated you very poorly. I realized after I left that if you were so passionate about this issue, there must be a good reason. I need to listen to you because even if we disagree, your opinion is important to me." God thinks our opinion is important. I love the story in Exodus in which, after the people of Israel have built a golden calf, God considers destroying them and starting over. Moses defends the people and says, "Turning from your fierce wrath, change your mind and do not bring disaster on your people." God changes his mind. This is a humble God, open to critique and input. One day Jesus was traveling through a Gentile region when a woman began to beg him to heal her daughter. Jesus told her, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. It is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." The woman said, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." I was taught, since Jesus was perfect, that his response couldn't be as racist and exclusive as it seems. I was told Jesus was testing the woman to see how much faith she had, knowing full well he would heal the child in the end. I no longer make excuses for Jesus. I allow him to learn and to grow, to be transformed by the persistence of a woman who wouldn't accept an understanding of God that excluded her. Jesus was open, willing to allow others to challenge his thoughts and behaviors, allowing God to speak to him through those he might ignore. Imitating him, gracious Christians believe everyone we meet has something to teach us. 10 years ago, Roni invited me to the worship service at the church jail. Roni had spent a couple of years in jail after nearly killing a man in a bar fight. He'd been saved while in jail, but when he grew angry, the blood vessel in his temple would still throb and he'd clench his fist. Actually, Roni had invited me 4 or 5 times. Each time I couldn't go. The blood vessel throbbed a little harder and his fist clenched a little tighter. He must have sensed what was true. I didn't want to go. I even began to schedule other events and appointments on the nights of the jail services so I would have an excuse. One Sunday after I'd preached a sermon on Matthew 25, Roni asked me why I didn't care about Jesus. Those were shocking words for a preacher to hear, but he pointed out that Jesus said, "I was in prison and you visited me." He asked, "You ever visit Jesus in prison, preacher?" He wasn't smiling. So I gave in. I thought, I'll go once, tell him it isn't my calling, and that'll be the end of it. I've been spending time in prisons and jails ever since. Indeed, some of my most powerful experiences of grace have occurred behind prison bars. Jesus calls us to grow in every situation, to learn compassion for all. I think I should stop here. Please correct me if you can. Bye.